Hello and greetings, everybody. I want to welcome you here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, normally on a Saturday night, we're doing an episode of What's New. And I did talk about doing an album, but it was a live album. And to be honest with you, I didn't really want to do any live albums for What's New. Yeah, it is new, but I thought I'd like to leave that for something later. So there wasn't any other albums that I wanted to do. There hasn't been for a couple of weeks. It's pretty much the same way every year at this time. So I decided rather than do something I didn't want to do, I'll do something I do want to do. So we're going to do a one-off episode tonight. This is the live experience. Now I have done quite a few of these before in the past, but they're now just kind of one-offs. I do them once in a while. But this album I've wanted to do for a while. So I thought, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity as a filler. We will do it tonight. And I'm just going to get my stuff up here because there's too much junk in the way, as always. The album we're going to do is Eloy's live album. Yeah, sorry, it's backwards, but we're on the MSI again. Have not yet figured that out. Maybe I never will. Maybe that's just my destiny. Anyways, fantastic album. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, should go. You can find it online. You can put it on YouTube. You can find it and listen to it. It's a very good album. Highly recommend it. It's one of actually their better albums. I do like their stuff quite a bit. The live setting is so much better, though, I think, for them anyways. So we're going to talk a little bit about the album first, and then I'm going to talk about the songs on it. Helps if I get to the right page, right? So this album was released, first about it, it's an album that they recorded when they were on tour in 1978, and then they mixed it at the EMI studios in Cologne, Germany. I think it's in the 60 range for length. They did tell me, and then I forgot to write it down, so we're just going to go without that. Sorry, I keep getting these pop-ups from Norton because I haven't used the computer for a bit. That's what it is. So anyways, it's in the 66 minute range, I believe, and it appearing on this album, of course. Oh, so actually, it was released on May the 2nd, 1978, after all the recordings were remixed in the studio in EMI Studios in Cologne. So appearing on this, of course, are the major known members of this band. Frank Borman on lead vocals and guitars, Klaus Peter Matzoil on bass and vocals, Detlev Schmidtchen on all keyboards, and then Jorgen Rosenthal on drums and percussion, and he does the voice as well. So there are some little voice parts that they do because they do a couple of fairly lengthy. Almost all the songs on this are very lengthy, and I didn't write down the length of a couple tracks here, so if I can find a pen, I will, so that I can get them right. But if I don't find one, you will just have to muddle through. I'll have to read them off the album then. Okay, so the first song on the album is Poseidon Creation. But actually, before we get too far into it, so please hit the subscription. That's much appreciated. And if you like it, then you can hit the like later. But before we get too far into it, just give you an overview of the album. So it's very, very atmospheric, very spacey, very symphonic, very atmospheric. It's typical Eloy that way, but being in a live setting, it seems to be even greater. Lots of heavy parts throughout the album. Heavy rhythm section. The rhythm section in this band is one of the heaviest, I think. And then the guitar solos are really kind of slow, melodic at most of the time. There's a couple that are a little faster paced, and it's pretty much keyboard dominated throughout the album. So the first song on the album is called Poseidon's Creation. This song is 11 minutes, almost 12 minutes in length. Really heavy guitar on this. The rhythm section, very pulsy, very heavy, very noticeable, really. The vocals are strong, but like most of the stuff by Eloy, they're not particularly that great. I think he would have been better if he'd had a different vocalist. But like I've said before, and I'll say it again, I've gotten kind of used to his sound of his voice. It doesn't bother me anymore. Still wish they'd had picked up a different vocalist, but they didn't. So we will just move along. So the next track out is Incarnations of Logo. Oh, before I get too far, I'll try to give you the original album they're on too. So that one was on Ocean. This one is also on Ocean. Incarnation of Logos, a slow melodic vocal with some voice during the opening part of this particular track. Then it gets really spacey, lots of synthesizers accompanying this vocal part. Then it gets quite heavy as the song goes along. Very rhythmic bass tone on it. The song gets heavier. The keyboards get more dominant as this track moves along. And then you've got this almost colossal sound, the guitar that builds to this really catchy riff. Yeah, just it's a colossal sound on this particular track. It's about 8 minutes and almost 9 minutes in length. It's a really good track, and of course it's on the Ocean album originally. The next track out is the Sun Song. This one starts out with a kind of a voice with a synthesizer, synthetic part to it. Not really too loud or too dominant. Then the keyboard part starts. It's slow, melodic, and you got a really heavy rhythmic section. That's pretty standard for Eloy. They have a lot of those songs where the keyboards will come on monstrously loud and strong, and then this pulsating rhythm section, almost like a heart almost. A really frontal vocals, heavy but difficult at times to understand what he's saying unless you're used to the sound of his voice. And it builds to a rhythmic beat, and then there's a pretty dominant solo guitar part, keyboard part towards the end of that track. The next track's out is Dance in Doubt and Fear. This is one of the ones I forgot to write the time down for. It's about 7 minutes, it's 7.5 minutes in length. Heavy pulsing opening, another one of those type of things where the bass and the drums and the keyboards all dominating but doing the things they always do. Very symphonic, but lots of pulsing going on. Very spacey song. Slow melodic guitar solo. It's all pretty standard for them, but in a live setting it seems to have a bigger atmosphere for it. This was probably my favorite of the tracks on the album as well. This one originated from the album Dawn, as did its predecessor, I believe. Yeah, so the Sun Song, which was the one just before that, also very symphonic part to it, and just dominated by keyboards as well. And that one is also from Dawn. So the next one up is Mutiny. Mutiny is almost 10 minutes in length. It comes off of the Power and Passion album originally, but live is much better, I think. Slow, symphonic keyboard vocal part at the beginning. The drumming begins to dominate as it kind of builds up a bit, as the song builds up. And then you got this kind of heavy rhythm section again, typical of Eloy. Guitar solos are slow, melodic, fitting in with this pulsating sound. I thought the keyboard part here was very high-pitched for them, more than they normally are too. And the pace does pick up on the back half of the album with the drums and the bass really dominating throughout that part. So that's Mutiny. That one from Power and Passion. Now we get on to the last three tracks. Gliding into the Light and Knowledge. This is off Dawn as well. Dawn, if you're not familiar with this, the kind of orangey red album. I've done actually a video on I think it's on my look back at a classic rock album. I'm pretty sure I did a version of this as well, if you want to go check that out. This is maybe the weakest track here though. So it's quiet. The guitars are quiet. The keyboards are quiet. The synthesizers are very quiet. It's very toned down, this song. It's got a bit of a heavy bass and drum symphonic backdrop, but the frontal part is very quiet. It's So you don't get as much of a pulse as you normally do on this, and the vocals are typical. So not one of my favorite tracks off of this particular album. On Dawn, I like it a little bit better. The next track out is called Inside. That's from their second studio album called Inside, originally. It opens again with a keyboard vocal and pulsating keyboard part, so nothing unusual here. It does slow down a little bit. There's a little bit of a slow interlude here before it kind of gets really heavy, and then the drum and guitar just take off, right? Guitar solo is melodic but heavy, very solemn, like a very kind of almost a little bit darkness to it, I guess. Heavy guitar riff throughout this track. The drum rolls are very complex and lots of drum fills as well. So this drummer is an excellent drummer for any of those who haven't had a chance to listen to him. And then it finishes with this kind of sped up part, which is kind of a little bit unusual for them. They tend to be very spacey, melodic, and this is just a lot faster. The guitar is faster. The drums are faster, almost rolling, and the basses pick up pace as well. Then you have the final track, which is a epic 20 minutes, almost 21 minutes. So that last song, by the way, Inside, was about 6 minutes or 6.5 minutes, and that's, of course, from the Inside album. So the next track is the long track, the epic track that they do. It's off the Oceans album. It's almost 21 minutes in length. It's called, and it's a weird title, obviously almost a science fiction title. It's called Atlantis, Agony of June the 5th, 8498 at 13 p.m. Gregorian Earth time. Yeah, so very kind of science fiction. It would only mean something to them. I don't think it means too much to a lot of people, but I don't mind this track. It's a little bit different. Because it's epic length. Each of the parts that they normally do, which are fairly a minute or two long, tend to be like 4 to 5 minutes in length. Fairly lengthy parts. Spacey noises with some really heavy kind of bass drum sounds in the background. Synthesizers, of course, covering all of the holy areas of it as well. And you got the voice and the vocals are sporadic. They're not really dominant on this particular song. It's more of an instrumental, but there are a little bit of both of these things going on as well. Slowly the keyboard part starts to dominate, as it usually does with this band. It's a very melodic, synthetic part that goes on for like 6 or 7 minutes. Fairly lengthy part too. The drum rolls and the bass are pretty heavy when they start up and get more dominant with this. Keyboards and synthesizers in the background as the bass and the drum part tend to come a little bit forward. And then the last couple of minutes, kind of a heavy part with some really spacey, I don't know what you would call it. Spacey symphonic part. Yeah, just really, so to me, you could have cut this song down by about 10 minutes and still been fairly lengthy and still would have felt a little bit long. I don't see there being any need for these guys to do an epic if that's the kind of epic they're going to do. It's not that I dislike it. I think it's a pretty good song, but it could be half that length and it would be just as good. Anyways, that's it for the one-off here, the live experience featuring Eloy Live from 1978. This is a very good live album. Maybe one of their best albums, actually. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the live experience. Sorry, I was waiting for my brain to catch up there a bit. Anyways, if you have, please hit the like and subscribe. And don't forget the notification bell. And leave any comments about this album or anything you want to comment about in the comment section below. This will come out as soon as it's able to upload, but being on the MSI, it's probably going to be a bit of time. So we'll try to get out there as close to 8 o'clock as we can, but it's probably going to be more like 8:30, I think. Anyways, we're going to try to get back to what's new next week. I think there's several albums that I want to do that should be out by then. It's just this time of year. It's always like that. It's at the similar at the end of the year, but not as bad. It's really bad at the beginning of the year because nobody wants to be in that first month for some reason. Anyways, hope to see you throughout the week. Take care and have yourself a good night, and goodbye.